giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice bread, not one cry, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, bedtime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no dream. 'Cause we ain't giving up no mountain.
Welcome to Facing the Nation for December 23rd, 2022. As the year dwindles down and, we're all in our festive moods and all these things, I still want to remind you that, Facing the Nation is on and you need to still call up a friend, call up a neighbor, whilst they're doing their little cleaning up, as we almost make it to Christmas, that they can still have a look at Facing the Nation. And you can, of course, still follow us on the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, the APNU AFC page on Facebook. So go ahead and let them know that Facing the Nation is on. Well, today, this show is going to be what I will call more of a tribute to our former leader and late president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, none other than Mr. Hugh Desmond Hoyte. As some of you would know, yesterday we celebrated remembered his death anniversary, as we did so at the Seven Ponds with a little program that was held there. So here is the address by the leader of the People's National Congress Reform as he reflected on our late president and leader and, talked about our current situation.
Good morning. Comrade Chairman of the session, former leader of our party, Comrade Robert Corbin, former general secretaries of our party. I think sometimes we forget that Hamilton Green was a general secretary, but my history would have shown that. Comrade Hamilton Green and Comrade Oscar Clark, members of the central executive of our party, members of parliament, all present. This morning, I'm speaking with you the week before Christmas. I therefore wish to extend to you and your families the very best for the season. I also wish you a happy and prosperous new year. In particular, I send personal greetings to the sister of President Hoyte, Ms. Gloria Patricia Hoyte. My understanding is that she is unwell at the moment, and I wish her a speedy recovery. 20 years ago, what should have been a traditional Christmas season of cheers was darkened by the death of our second leader of the People's National Congress Reform and president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mr. Hugh Desmond Hoyte. At the time of his death, he had left a body of accomplishments which were symbolic of his contribution to the development of Guyana. It has been stated on several previous occasions in this place that he had taken an economy battered by the global economic crisis and transformed it through the mechanism of the Economic Recovery Program, popularly called the ERP. He used that to transform it into a vital and growing economy. The IDB estimated in 1990 Guyana was experiencing a 9% economic growth. This successful economy was bequeathed to the PPP in 1992, and by 1996, they had effectively destroyed it. Yet the key elements of the ERP could not be destroyed. Some have argued that its essential features are still in place and is possibly responsible for rescuing us. Mr. Hoyte's achievements were not confined to the economic field. His was the determination to achieve the all-round development of the nation. He launched the Guyana Prize in 1987. Our leader, Mr. Desmond Hoyte, justified the launching of the prize in the following words: culture was always critical to the development. It was, and I quote, essential to the development of the whole man and the whole citizen, as food and physical health are at a more basic level. Material prosperity, even material self-sufficiency, is not enough. Human beings cannot and should not be so easily satisfied, unquote. He recognized the role of culture in our society, something the present administration will do well to learn. Today, our society seems to be gliding along on our oil wealth without any regard for the cultural development of our people. I wish to re-emphasize here, we in the People's National Congress Reform believe cultural development is important. The policy decision in the field of culture was complemented by a focus on the importance of education. At the same time, the foreign policy of the nation became the center of attention. Relations with our regional and CARICOM neighbors were greatly improved. And we must not forget that it was Mr. Hoyte who was directly responsible for the creation of the Iwakarama Rainforest Project, something which is celebrated today, but people conveniently refuse to accept that it was the brainchild of Hugh Desmond Hoyte who took it to the Commonwealth Conference in 1989 and had it approved. The PNCR has always been inspired by the achievements and purposes of its leaders. We know that Mr. Burnham's leadership inspired Mr. Hoyte. We know that Mr. Hoyte's leadership would have inspired Robert Corbyn. And we know that together, all of those would have inspired David Granger. I wish to submit to you this morning that we, in turn, as members of the PNCR, can learn important lessons from Mr. Hoyte's political life, from his presidency, and from all of those leaders who preceded us. I wish to recall that the period after the 1992 elections was one that tested the party and our supporters. I remember in particular, the PPP had returned to its ingrained habit of seeking to dominate our society. Then, as is it now in 2022, public servants who were considered to be members of the PNCR were dismissed in 2020. So were Indians and indigenous Guyanese who did not support the PPP. The Foreign Service bore the brunt of this policy of discrimination and harassment. 6 to 9 of my colleagues in the Foreign Service were sent packing for no reason at all. Discrimination seemed to be the order of the day in 1997 as it is today in 2022. The economic policies of the PPP in such areas as the distribution of land seemed intended only to benefit the supporters of that party. How well do I remember that even though the PNCR had won region number 4, the PPP had created a land selection committee without the PNCR being represented on it. I assume young Daniel C. Ram will see similarities with what occurred. By 1998, our society had become a tinderbox. Soon the aggrieved citizens of our nation took to the streets. Our problems were so deep-seated that we had to invite CARICOM to bail us out of our difficult situation. I am sure you would recognize how much the adverse circumstances of the 1990s resemble the situation today. We have seen this movie before with the same actors. It was Mr. Hoyte's leadership at the time which brought us through this difficult and testing situation. He faced a similar situation as we do today. The PNCR had to assert its rights as a party. In those days, we protested. We made our point, but it's our task to analyze those protests and develop new strategies in this circumstance. The protests attracted fierce criticisms. Our supporters were called criminals and other derogatory names. But the PNCR was not detained by the barking of our opponents. The caravan marched on. The PNCR had to defend its supporters and non-supporters against the PPP's policies of discrimination and domination and could not veer from our objectives. Today, we continue to be focused on our objectives. Moreover, the party had to make deliberate efforts to combat the transfer on a massive scale the resources of this nation to the supporters of the PPP. We ignore at our peril in this nation that the Jack Doe presidency can be said to have engineered the biggest transfer of wealth to one ethnic group. Then as now, the PNCR had to face the ill-informed and politically inspired attacks on its leadership. The viability of the PNCR was questioned, and there was the old chestnut that the PNCR could not get back into power. We all know what happened. Those reports of the imminent demise of our party were grossly exaggerated, as they are today. Mr. Hoyte tuned out the noise of criticism and focused on the need to give hope to our supporters and to take the fight to the PPP as the tactics and strategy of the party dictated. He was highly successful. And I wish to say to you as leader, I will learn from that experience and act as a By 1998, the PPP had agreed to a reduction of their length of tenure as a government from 5 years to 3 years as a result of the signing of the Herdmanston Accord. But Mr. Hoyte did not sit on his laurels. When Mr. Barra Jack Doe succeeded Mrs. Janet Jagan as president, Mr. Hoyte responded to an invitation for dialogue, and I'm convinced that had that dialogue not been sabotaged by the PPP, our country would have been in a better place in terms of its economic development and the relationship between the two main ethnic groups. We must here recall that another leader of our party, Comrade Robert Corbyn, went out of his way and became involved in constructive engagement, which he thought and we thought was good for this country. Again, the PPP showed no faith and sabotaged it. Mr. Hoyte's success in trying circumstances is cause for hope and optimism. I said a moment ago that our leaders have left us with a template of how to cope with difficult situations. One of them is when to zero out from the noise of our opponents and be focused on our objectives. They have taught us how we can ensure the survival and sustainability of our party. This can be done through wise and deliberate policy. In a world in which now there is Facebook and sensationalism, this counsel of Comrade Hoyte is important. It is necessary that this be stated, for even the average schoolboy or schoolgirl will tell you that these are difficult times. As the former head of the Environmental Protection Agency, my friend Dr. Vincent Adams said recently that the PPP has, I quote, become power drunk, unquote, as a result of having access to the massive resources thrown up by the oil industry. Remember, I referred previously to the massive transfer of wealth to the supporters of the PPP in the 1990s. It is happening again. But it is not only here that we have to contend with the PPP's philosophy of government for their supporters. The PPP government is not accountable as it spends the nation's money like a drunken sailor. Massive projects are being undertaken without any major feasibility study or oversight, and the resources from the oil industry are being distributed in a most inequitable manner. The challenge that therefore faces us as a party is not only to ensure that the oil industry is a blessing rather than a curse, but also to do everything it's guaranteed that it's a legacy for future generations. It is in this regard we have focused on a people-centered development strategy, and at the appropriate time, we will unveil our people-centered development strategy, which we would have developed. Like Mr. Burnham and Mr. Hoyte, like Comrade Corbyn and Comrade Granger, like our elders, Comrade Hamilton Green, Oscar Clark, Jeffrey Thomas, Rashley Jackson, and others, I have every confidence in the supporters of our party and the people of Guyana, of which I am the leader. We will come through this difficult period and guarantee the success and equitable development of our nation. That must be our focus. And that is why I have not hesitated to walk among our people and to be with them in this hour of need. I believe, as leader of the party, that all our party comrades in every region must find themselves amidst our people. It is good now, and it will be good for government. I have heard, as I moved around, the complaints of discrimination, and I have seen the levels of poverty in our society. I have no doubt that this is an urgent social problem. Yet the PPP is making no effort to deal with it, even as the World Bank has warned that poverty in Guyana is as high as 49%. This is clearly unacceptable. The resources are available, and my party will insist that the current administration do something about this situation as we propose to them a comprehensive program and policies and programs to deal with poverty. A government under the APNU AFC will ensure the resources of this country benefit the people of Guyana. It is a source of great concern to our party that the PPP seems mega projects rather than attending to the basic needs of our people. This is callous as well as cynical. For everyone knows that these projects enable the PPP to fund itself and enrich their elite. Yet for all the difficulties we face, I'm very hopeful for the future of Guyana. I've seen how Mr. Hoyte was able to ride out the difficulties in the pre-1998 period. And I'm persuaded that the PNCR, with the support of its constituents, will remain a formidable force and will no doubt beat the People's Progressive Party in the next elections. And we intend to do this with a viable coalition. When I became leader of the party, I called for unity. I make this call again this morning. The party has to be united as we seek to resist the efforts of the PPP to control and dominate our society. A better unified Guyana. We need not fear, as our party has gone through many difficult periods, as I have already described. We have survived, we have progressed, and we have prospered. I have no doubt we will do it again. I am convinced that the PNCR is a government, as a government was inclusive, and a government in future with the coalition will be inclusive. I'm satisfied we have the intellectual and other capacity to do it. I'm satisfied that we are competent. But most importantly, I'm satisfied that as a party, we are resilient. I'm satisfied we govern fairly when we were in government, and we operated based on the rule of law. And I believe this is the recipe for success. This is the legacy left us by Hugh Desmond Hoyte. Today, we celebrate his life, 20 years since his passing, and we are indeed thankful for the ideas and activities of Hugh Desmond Hoyte that would have resulted in us becoming the formidable force we are in this country. I thank you.
I hope that speech was somehow inspiring and reflecting as we saw the leader's speech on the late president and former leader of the People's National Congress Reform. I would like to share with you now, a little interview that was done with a few persons who give tributes on talking about the late leader and president of the Cooperative Republic. Take a look at it.
When Hoyte took over the leadership of the party, the country, at a very difficult time. He had to do things that were novel and in the interests of the country. The Economic Recovery Program was a significant step he made in the right direction, established the Vikorama, and I think people don't give him enough credit for those two things. The other challenge, Colossus. As we see in human history, whenever a leader follows a giant like Lyndon Forbes Bonham, he's faced with challenges. Within the party and within the country, people expected him to continue that. But in each generation, each century, there was only one great, that was Forbes Bonham. Desmond Hoyte did fantastic things to keep this country united. And I believe that today we must follow the path he set so that we can unite Guyana, where all of our people can benefit from the fantastic resources we have. If you may forgive me, addressing every Guyanese, irrespective of race, color, or creed, Desmond Hoyte's Economic Recovery Program was fashioned in difficult times. Today, Guyana is unique. Oil, gold, mineral, marine resources. And if we follow the template set by him, we can move forward. I don't think Guyanese recognize that if you look around the world, in China, in India, in Europe, there are difficulties. Man-made, some made by the Creator. Bad weather, floods, droughts, hurricanes. We have none of those things. And the only impediment I see is an unwillingness by this administration to sit down and talk with all of us so that we can really achieve the objective which Desmond Hoyte talked about, being one people, one nation, one destiny.
Great Colonel Desmond Hoyte in two capacities. One as Commander-in-Chief. He was my Commander-in-Chief and I served in the Guyana Defense Force. So in that context, he provided sufficient information and resources to the Defense Force to develop both its officers and its ranks. And as a politician, a former president, I think what resonates with me is the Economic Recovery Program that he laid in this country. And as you just heard, that Economic Recovery Program, its fundamental pillars are still existent. And had it not been for Desmond Hoyte and that program, Guyana would not be where it is today. Having said that, there's a lot more to be done in this nation state. We can learn from his work. The beginning of the LCDS is Irocrama. We must give him credit for that. That is the beginning of the low carbon development strategy, which is succeeded by the Green State Development Strategy. So we can contextualize all of these things and recognize and resonate with the work of you, Desmond Hoyte.
President Hoyte was a gentleman, but a leader of no mean order. He was chosen by Forbes Burnham to be his prime minister, so that when he died, he could have succeeded him. And if Mr. Burnham chose you, you must understand that he was properly chosen. And when he assumed the role of president in this country, Mr. Bernard, who was his Minister of Education, said these words: "Cometh the hour, cometh the man." He took charge of the economy of this country, and he changed this country's economy, turned this economy around by using the skills, even though not an economist but a lawyer, using the skills of negotiation with the international community and led by Canada to bring this economy back into. Mr. Hoyte cannot be second guessed. He was a man of extremely clear vision about where Guyana was going, and he had picked up a lot of that from his association with Paul. But he, in his own right, was a man of vision, a man of caliber, in the sense that he did things for Guyana, which up to today, if you ask people anywhere, they will tell you Mr. Hoyte was the man who repaired a lot of the damage that had been done on the economic front, and who brought this country to the point where we were all proud as to be Guyanese under him. And so Aubrey mentioned something about him as a cultural icon. He was a cultural icon, a man who understood culture, and he did everything in his power to bring cultural recognition. I mean, following on from what was done before, because, you know, Burnham was introduced in all the religions and so had national holidays and all those things that happened before. When he came in, he crafted a lot of cultural things. For example, he had he was the one who started the recognition of the various racial and cultural groups: Chinese, English, Portuguese, Indian. He invited the Indian troops to come down. You know, he understood the need for cultural diversity, but at the same time, if you're going to get cultural unity, there has to be unity in diversity, and so he organized a lot of things to bring that about. And Mr. Hoyte, I would say Mr. Hoyte was one of the prominent leaders of Guyana. He was from the PNC, but he was a Guyanese leader par excellence. And I would hope that a lot of us have learned and continue to learn from things that he has done, because he has written a lot too. And we must read what he has written, all of his speeches in Parliament and other ways, and we can gain a lot from Mr. Hoyte. Mr. Hoyte was a national icon. And so today, as we observe his 20th death anniversary, we remember him fondly. And we pray God that he will continue to rest in eternal peace.
You, Desmond Hoyte. When I think of you, Desmond Hoyte, I think of strength. I think of resilience. I think of leadership. I think of the father figure. You, Desmond Hoyte, from the outside, looked as though he was a very serious man. But when you get to know him, you recognize that he was a very caring individual, and he loved to chat with young people. And so I remember having the opportunity to sit with him, to walk with him in the various communities when persons said, no, he doesn't do that. But he did. We walked all over this country, and he couldn't care less whether it was a dam or whether it was a paved road. Whatever led him to meet his people, he was ready to do that. I remember the guidance he gave to me while I was in Parliament. My very first speech was a budget speech. And I laugh because it wasn't, let me say, political. I brought a schoolgirl speech to Parliament. And afterwards, I felt very bad about it. But he called me in and he lectured me in a very kind way and guided me. And from then on, we became very close and we worked very closely together. I do miss him. I remember him so often when so many things go wrong. All the injustices that we saw during his time. And when persons believed that they could have been disrespectful to him. And he stood up and he stood for those principles of respect and also recognition of office, etc. But all in all, I must say that he was a true leader of our party. He was a true leader for people. He cared about people. He always wanted to know about the older folks in the party or folks that he didn't see for some time. And so today coming here and once again celebrating his life is just a reminder and a refueling for me to go on to do the things that he would have wanted us to do as members of the People's National Congress.
An exceptional man in the sense that he was a politician, but not a politician by itself. He was a politician who had a wide variety of interests. He had a formidable interest in literature, music, and to a large extent, how the world functioned and where the PNC and he, Desmond Hoyte, fitted into that world. That is why he was able to take a battered economy, a battered society in the 1980s and transform both the economy and the society in a way which is lasting to this day. The Ghana prize stands by itself. The recovery of the economy is something that is ongoing. I mean, what is happening now has a lot to do with the ERP, which was started in 1989. And I think generally he's a man who has been underestimated as to his contribution to our survival as a nation. And of course, in the area of foreign policy, he has major achievements. It's under him that the good officer process was started with Venezuela, our relations with CARICOM or repaired, and generally Ghana's standing in the international community rose to a considerable extent.
Desmond Hoyte was a significant person, a major player in the politics of Guyana for many years, and I believe that he made an indelible contribution to the development of Guyana. Mr. Hoyte, as a politician, as a statesman, was of the highest order in terms of his personal decorum, the way in which he conducted the affairs of the state while he was president, and the leader of the opposition. He kept the PPP government then to account. He strove for the development of the Guyanese people, the establishment and the defending their rights, and I believe that all material times Mr. Hoyte made in that regard a significant contribution to Guyana. As a leader, he made major decisions that would have affected the life of the country up to now. His decision to ensure that we have a mechanism in place that all the political parties could be satisfied about the elections and his elections process. He made major decisions which form the basis for our economic progress that we're making today. And in terms of the social contribution and consciousness, he made a major decision to establish the Irokamo Rainforest Project, which at the time was the first in the world, and that by itself established him as a visionary to the world, and to which the Guyanese people had already come to accept that Mr. Hoyte had indeed served and made a major contribution to Guyana. And I believe part of his contribution must always be recognized. He made a significant contribution, as I said before, but I believe that his life, his purpose, and his mission, we continue to carry it out today as members of the People's National Congress Reform. As the younger generation, we remain committed to the ideals to see an equitable and a very advanced society.
I would say that he was a visionary, and he was never afraid to implement changes which were realistic and necessary for the development of Guyana. I recall him introducing the economic recovery program at a time when people felt that he should have stuck to the doctrinaire socialist program. But he, recognizing that the world was changing and Guyana needed change, was unafraid to move in an area where the country needed development. So from that standpoint, I would say he was bold, innovative, and unafraid to do what was necessary for Guyana. An all-rounded personality, he gave leadership when it was necessary.
Right, so we saw the tributes coming. I mean, all of them, were, just giving a brief on, how they understood the former leader and, their thoughts and other things as well. So I hope you had a good look at that and enjoyed that as well. I want to, as I wrap up today's show, we have that green line that we talked about last week. We sat down with the current chairperson of the Guyana Youth and Student Movement, which is the youth arm of the People's National Congress Reform, where we talked about that big party coming up on the 26th of December that I'm telling you guys, you cannot afford to miss it. So, those of you viewing online, you may not be in Guyana, but you can call up a friend, you call up a family member and tell them, look, Boxing night, y'all got a plan. You need to be at the green line and, encourage them as well to come out to that. This is an opportunity to, support something. And it is also an opportunity to, have a nice time. We know that a lot has happened during the year. There are many things that we're not pleased about. There are so many things that through the year we could have said, we're fed up about. And this party as well is a way of helping you relax and ease that part as, you celebrate and come down, as you coming down to the end of the year with people of like mind. So I don't think this is an event that you should miss. My operator will soon pull up the ads for that event. But I just want to remind you that Boxing Night, the 26th of December, which is Monday, that Congress Place is the place to be. I can't remember if I mentioned, but there will be prizes being given away for the best fed up look, whether it's an individual and as well as a group, the best fed up look coming from a group. So there are things to be won, there are prizes to be had, lots of DJs line up, lots of artists. Don't miss this, don't miss it, don't miss it. You can take a look at that ad.
The Guiding to Student Movement presents the Green Line Edition. December the 26th at Congress Place of Fire. Performing live, Quasi A, the Fame Band, DJ Magnum, DJ Reality, and Mixmaster Tony. Admission $1,000. Cash prizes for individuals and group with the best fed up attire. It's the Green Line Edition.
Guyana Youth and Student Movement proudly presents Green Line 2022. And we're talking about Boxing Night. And remember, the theme of this event is called Fed Up. So check out Congress Place. We hear me say 26th of December. Your boy DJ Magnum gonna be live up in the building musically. Yeah, me there for entertainment. So no know it I got that. When you hear me say Boxing Night, Congress Place, Green Line 2022. See you.
All right. So I hope you took a look at that. You marked it on your calendar and you plan to be in Congress Place on the 26th. As I close off today and Christmas being Sunday, I want to wish you, my viewers, wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, and I hope the season. Also remember the reason for the season, which is the birth of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And you take some time to reflect on your lives and reflect on family and, really reflect on the true reason and the meaning for the season. And I hope you go out, to church with your family and that kind of thing and give God thanks for life. I want to thank you once again for joining Facing the Nation. And, we have one last show left for the year, and I hope to see you here. And do enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
'Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice bread, not one garage, not a bit of grass. We love the open country of the Rukununi and the Essequibo. Time or night, though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it, we have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up, we ain't giving